In a shocking turn of events on last night's Jimmy Kimmel Live, what began as a routine promotional interview erupted into an unprecedented confrontation between host Jimmy Kimmel and beloved star Pedro Pascal. Viewers watched in disbelief. As tensions escalated, voices raised, and Hollywood's typically polished facade cracked wide open, revealing the raw power dynamics at play behind the glittering surface of late-night television. The studio buzzed with anticipation as Pedro Pascal walked onto the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live. The audience erupted in applause, phones raised to capture the entrance of the star whose popularity had skyrocketed through his roles in The Mandalorian, The Last of Us, and most recently, his Oscar-nominated performance in Guillermo del Toro's latest psychological thriller. Pascal smiled warmly, waving to fans as he approached the desk where Kimmel waited. The host's demeanor seemed off from the start, his smile tight, his posture rigid. Industry insiders had whispered for weeks about Kimmel's growing frustration with declining ratings and the network's pressure to boost viewership through more controversial content. "Pedro Pascal, everyone," Kimmel announced, his voice carrying an edge that regular viewers immediately noticed. "The man who's apparently in every hit show and movie these days." Pascal laughed good-naturedly, settling into the guest chair. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. It's great to be here." "So great that you could fit us into your busy schedule," Kimmel replied, the sarcasm barely concealed. "You know, I was just telling my producer that we should rename the show The Pedro Pascal Hour, since you're on every other network these days." The audience's laughter held a note of discomfort. Pascal's smile flickered but held as he navigated the thinly veiled hostility. "Well, I'm grateful for the opportunities," Pascal responded graciously. "It's been an incredible few years." "Incredible is one word for it," Kimmel continued, shuffling his note cards. "Let's talk about this new movie where you play a journalist who exposes political corruption. Bit of a stretch for you, isn't it? Playing someone with actual integrity?" The audience gasped. Pascal blinked, visibly taken aback by the unprovoked jab. "I'm sorry?" Pascal asked, his Chilean accent becoming slightly more pronounced as it often did when he was caught off guard. "Oh, come on," Kimmel pressed, leaning forward. "Everyone in this town knows about your reputation. The demanding behavior on set, the projects you've walked away from leaving hundreds of crew members without jobs. You've got this nice guy image, but my sources tell me it's just that. An image." The studio fell silent. The camera caught Pascal's, expression shifting from confusion to realization to controlled anger. "I think there's been some misunderstanding," Pascal said carefully. "I pride myself on professionalism and respect for everyone I work with. If you've heard otherwise, I'd be interested to know from whom." Kimmel smirked. "Oh, I protect my sources. Unlike the character you play who throws everyone under the bus for a story." The production assistant offstage made a cutting motion, signaling for a commercial break, but Kimmel waved them off. "You know what, Jimmy?" Pascal said, his voice level but intense. "I came here to talk about a film I'm incredibly proud of. A film that deals with exactly this kind of public character. Assassination without facts." "Facts?" Kimmel laughed. "The fact is you've managed to become Hollywood's golden boy while stepping on a lot of people to get there. The humble act might work on other shows, but not here." Pascal set down the glass of water he'd been holding. The controlled movement, betraying his effort to remain composed. "What exactly is happening right now? Is this some kind of bit we didn't rehearse?" "No bit," Kimmel replied. "Just tired of the phoniness in this business. Everyone walking around pretending to be saints when the reality is so different." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Online, the live broadcast was already generating thousands of shocked comments. The show's social media team watched in horror as clips began circulating with viewers expressing outrage at Kimmel's behavior. "I'm not claiming to be a saint," Pascal responded, a new steeliness entering his voice. I'm a person who works hard, values collaboration, and tries to treat others with dignity. Something that seems to be lacking in this interview. Kimmel's eyes narrowed. You want to talk about dignity? Let's talk about how you handled that charity situation last year. Real dignified. Pascal's expression changed. Something had shifted. Whatever Kimmel was referring to had clearly struck a nerve. That's interesting, Jimmy, Pascal said, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet that commanded attention. Because the charity event you're referring to, the one for children's cancer research, was actually sabotaged by someone leaking false information to the press. Information that nearly tanked a fundraiser for sick kids because someone was upset they weren't given a hosting role. Kimmel's face flushed red. The implication was clear to everyone in the industry who'd followed the scandal. Rumors had circulated that a prominent late-night host had been behind the leak after being passed over as the event's MC. You might want to be careful with what you're insinuating, Kimmel warned, his jovial host persona completely evaporated. I'm not insinuating anything, Pascal replied. Just finding it interesting that you would bring up that particular event. An event where the leaked information was traced back to an email from this network. The studio audience erupted in murmurs. Production assistants were frantically signaling from the wings. The show's director was shouting into his headset, demanding they cut to commercial. But Kimmel, his face now a mask of barely controlled fury, refused to back down. You think you can come on my show and make accusations? He demanded, voice rising. Pascal remained unnervingly calm. I didn't make any accusations, Jimmy. You brought up the charity event. I simply stated facts about what happened. Facts that are public record. Let's talk about other facts then, Kimmel said, shuffling through his cards aggressively. Like how your last 3 projects underperformed, or how that director, what's his name, refused to work with you again after your creative differences. The audience watched, transfixed by the train wreck unfolding before them. Behind the scenes, network executives were frantically calling the production booth, demanding intervention. Pascal leaned back in his chair, studying Kimmel with an expression that mixed pity and disappointment. You know, I've always respected what you've built here. 15 years on air is no small achievement, which makes this all the more sad to witness. What's sad is watching everyone fawn over you when I know— What do you know, Jimmy? Pascal interrupted, his patience visibly fraying. What exactly do you know about me that justifies this ambush on national television? The tension in the studio was palpable. Camera operators exchanged glances, unsure if they should continue filming. The audience sat in stunned silence, phones recording every moment of the unprecedented meltdown occurring on what was typically a light-hearted talk show. I know enough, Kimmel said cryptically, his knuckles white as he gripped his note cards. Enough to know that the public persona doesn't match the private reality. Pascal took a deep breath, then leaned forward. Here's what I know, Jimmy. I know that attacking guests might boost your declining ratings temporarily, but it won't fix what's really wrong with this show. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Kimmel's face darkened with rage as Pascal continued. And I know that whatever information you think you have about me, whatever rumors you've been fed by whoever has their own agenda, it doesn't justify this behavior. Not as a host, not as a professional, not as a human being. The studio fell into a deafening silence. Even the most seasoned crew members exchanged nervous glances. In 15 years of broadcasts, they'd never witnessed Kimmel so thoroughly called out on his own stage. You've got some nerve, Kimmel finally responded, his voice low and dangerous. Coming on my show and questioning my professionalism. Pascal didn't flinch. I didn't come here planning to do that, but I also didn't come here expecting to be ambushed with baseless accusations. Baseless? Kimmel scoffed, reaching beneath his desk to pull out a manila folder. I've got statements from 3 crew members on The Last of Us set about your behavior. Want me to read them on air? The audience gasped. Pascal's eyes narrowed slightly as he studied the folder. A subtle smile crossed his face. "That's an empty prop folder from your comedy bit last week," Pascal observed calmly. "The one where you pretended to have dirt on the network executives. You're bluffing, Jimmy." Kimmel's face reddened further as several audience members failed to suppress their shocked laughter. The host slammed the folder down, papers spilling out, blank except for the show's letterhead. "This interview is over," Kimmel snapped, turning toward the camera. "We'll be right back after—" "No," Pascal interrupted, his voice firm but controlled. "You don't get to ambush me and then cut me off when it doesn't go your way. That's not how this works." The floor director froze, unsure which host to follow. The red light on the camera remained illuminated. They were still broadcasting live. "You've been doing this for years," Pascal continued, addressing not just Kimmel, but the stunned audience, creating awkward, hostile moments with guests for ratings, making people uncomfortable for views. "I've seen what you did to that young actress last month, reducing her to tears with jokes about her personal life." "That was a bit," Kimmel defended weakly. "She was in on it." "She wasn't," Pascal countered. "I know because she called me afterward, devastated. She's 23 years old and you humiliated her to get clips for your social media accounts." By now, phones throughout the audience were raised, capturing every moment of the meltdown. Network executives were bombarding the production booth with calls, but the damage was done. This was happening in real time, impossible to contain. "You don't know what you're talking about," Kimmel insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. "This is my show, my stage." "And that's the problem," Pascal replied. "You've forgotten that with that power comes responsibility. These aren't just entertainers you're bringing on stage. They're people." Kimmel's producer finally rushed onto the set, whispering urgently in his ear. Kimmel brushed her off, standing abruptly. "You think the audience is on your side?" he challenged Pascal. "You think they don't see through your self-righteous act?" To everyone's surprise, Pascal chuckled, a genuine laugh that only seemed to infuriate Kimmel further. "This isn't about sides, Jimmy. That's what you're not understanding. This isn't a competition. I came here to promote a film that means a lot to me, that deals with exactly these kinds of power dynamics and the cost of integrity." "Oh, please," Kimmel sneered. "Spare me the sermon. Everyone knows you took that role after 3 other actors turned it down." A subtle shift crossed Pascal's face, something between amusement and pity. "Actually, I fought for that role against actors with bigger names and took a pay cut because I believed in the message. But that's not something I'd expect you to understand." In the control room, the director was pleading with the network to allow a commercial break, but executives had made a calculated decision. The social media explosion happening in real time was too valuable to interrupt. "You know what your problem is, Pascal?" Kimmel hissed, abandoning all pretense of hosting. "You actually believe your own press. You think because people love you as the Mandalorian, as Joel, that makes you special. You're just another replaceable actor." Several audience members audibly objected. Pascal remained composed, though something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "I'm going to share something with you, Jimmy, that might help you," Pascal said quietly. "Success isn't a zero-sum game. My achievements don't diminish yours. The reason people are connecting with my work isn't because of press or hype. It's because I'm telling stories that resonate with something real." "Don't patronize me," Kimmel spat. "I'm not," Pascal replied. "I'm offering perspective. You've been doing this show so long you've forgotten why you started. It wasn't to tear people down. It wasn't to ambush guests for ratings. You don't know anything about why I started this show," Kimmel retorted, but his voice had lost some of its edge. "I know you were funnier when you cared about the comedy more than the power," Pascal said simply. Something in Kimmel snapped. He stood up so violently his chair tipped backward, crashing to the floor. "Security!" he shouted. "Get him off my stage!" The audience erupted in protests. Two uncomfortable security guards approached hesitantly, clearly reluctant to escort off one of Hollywood's most beloved stars who had done nothing wrong. Pascal raised his hands in a calming gesture to the security personnel. "No need," he said. "I was just leaving." He turned to face the audience directly. "I appreciate you all coming tonight. Sorry you had to witness this." As Pascal stood, Kimmel closed the distance between them, jabbing a finger toward Pascal's chest. "You're finished in this town," he hissed, voice low but caught by his still active microphone. "No one ambushes me on my own show and walks away unscathed." Pascal looked down at the finger nearly touching his chest, then back up at Kimmel's flushed face. The studio remained tensely silent, every eye fixed on the two men, every phone recording the unprecedented confrontation. "That threat might have worked 15 years ago," Pascal replied, voice calm yet carrying to every corner of the studio. "But the industry has changed, Jimmy. Power doesn't work the way it used to." Kimmel's producer frantically signaled from offstage, drawing a finger across her throat. "Cut the broadcast." But the camera operators, transfixed by the unfolding drama, held steady. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," Kimmel growled. "I've ended careers with a single phone call." Pascal nodded thoughtfully. "I believe you, and that's exactly the problem." He turned to address the audience directly. "That's what my new film is actually about. People who abuse their positions of power, who mistake fear for respect." "Don't you dare use my show to promote your agenda," Kimmel shouted, grabbing Pascal's arm. The audience gasped. Several security personnel moved forward but froze when Pascal raised his hand, signaling he had the situation under control. "Take your hand off me," Pascal said quietly, his expression unchanged but his eyes blazing. "Now." Something in his tone made Kimmel release his grip immediately. The host stepped back, suddenly aware of how the scene was playing out, not just to the studio audience but to millions watching the viral moment unfold online. "This is still my show," Kimmel insisted, voice cracking slightly. "My stage." "Yes, it is," Pascal agreed, straightening his jacket. "And you've shown everyone exactly who you are on it tonight." He turned to leave, but paused, considering something. The audience watched, breathless, as Pascal made a decision. He turned back toward Kimmel. "You know what's ironic about all this?" Pascal asked, his voice softer now. "I've actually defended you over the years. When people talked about your bullying tactics, your temper tantrums, how you blacklisted people who crossed you, I always said there must be more to the story." Kimmel's expression faltered, a flash of something like shame crossing his features, before hardening again. "I don't need your defense," he spat. "Clearly not," Pascal replied, "but maybe you need some perspective." He gestured toward the silent audience. "These people don't tune in to watch you tear others down. They tune in because you're supposed to be entertaining. Funny. A host who makes guests feel welcome, not threatened." From the wings, the network's vice president of programming had arrived, whispering urgently with the executive producer. Phones throughout the audience illuminated faces as viewers scrolled through the explosion of reactions online. "You don't tell me how to run my show," Kimmel insisted, though his voice had lost its conviction. "I'm not," Pascal said simply. "I'm just holding up a mirror." A commotion near the stage entrance drew attention, as a woman in an elegant business suit pushed past security. Network executives moved to intercept her but stopped short when they recognized Kimmel's agent. "Jimmy," she called sharply. "That's enough. We need to talk. Now." Kimmel glanced toward her, then back at Pascal, caught between rage and the dawning realization of what he'd done. His live meltdown was already trending worldwide, clips spreading across every platform. "This isn't over," he muttered to Pascal. "Actually, I think it is," Pascal replied, not unkindly. He turned to address the stunned audience one final time. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm sorry it turned out this way." As Pascal made his way toward the exit, something remarkable happened. First one person, then another, and suddenly, The entire audience rose to their feet in applause, not the polite, prompted applause of a talk show, but a genuine standing ovation. Kimmel stood alone at center stage, the sound of applause clearly not meant for him echoing through the studio. His producer approached cautiously, covering her microphone. "We need to cut to commercial now," she urged. "The network president is on the line." Dazed, Kimmel nodded. As the applause continued, the on-air light finally dimmed. Pascal paused at the exit, looking back one last time at the host who remained frozen under the bright lights, before disappearing through the door. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation flooded every social media platform. Kimmel meltdown and Pascal stands up trended globally. Celebrity colleagues began weighing in, many sharing their own stories of Kimmel's behind-the-scenes behavior that had been whispered about but never publicly confirmed. By midnight, the network issued a terse statement. Tonight's episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live featured an unscripted exchange. We take the concerns raised during the broadcast seriously and are reviewing the matter. 3 days later, as the confrontation's view count surpassed 100 million across platforms, the network announced, "Jimmy Kimmel Live will be going on hiatus for 2 weeks as we address recent events." The hiatus was extended twice more before the network finally announced a mutual decision to conclude Jimmy Kimmel's 15-year run as host, and a new direction for the late-night franchise. Pascal, meanwhile, had maintained a dignified silence, declining all interview requests about the incident. When his film premiered 2 weeks later, he answered only one question about the Kimmel confrontation. "Sometimes standing up to a bully isn't about winning," he told the reporter. "It's about showing others it can be done." The film, centered on journalistic integrity and the abuse of power, opened to record numbers, but industry insiders noted the bigger impact had come behind the scenes. Subtle yet significant changes were occurring throughout the talk show landscape. Showrunners implemented stronger protections for guests. Networks revised their codes of conduct for hosts. Most tellingly, several long-rumored instances of abusive behavior by other powerful entertainment figures suddenly faced public scrutiny. 6 months later, when Pascal returned to late-night television on a competing network, the new host's first question referenced the infamous confrontation. "Many people credit you with changing the culture of how guests are treated on these shows," the host said. "Was that your intention that night?" Pascal smiled thoughtfully. "My intention was just to maintain my dignity. But sometimes standing your ground creates ripples you never anticipated." The host nodded. "Well, I can promise no ambushes here tonight." "I appreciate that," Pascal replied. "Though I've found the best conversations don't require ambushes at all. Just honesty." As for Kimmel, he eventually re-emerged with a podcast and limited streaming deal, but with noticeably tempered behavior and without the institutional power he'd wielded for years. The era of untouchable hosts who could make or break careers with a phone call had ended. His final public comment on the matter came during a reluctant apology tour. "I lost perspective," he admitted. "When you sit behind that desk for 15 years, you start to believe you own it. You forget that it's a privilege, not a right." The infamous confrontation would be referenced in media studies courses for years to come, a pivotal moment when the old guard of entertainment power dynamics visibly shifted on live television. But for those who witnessed it firsthand, the most powerful lesson was simpler: the importance of maintaining one's dignity when faced with intimidation, and the unexpected impact that one person's refusal to be bullied can have on an entire industry.